Hey guys, welcome back to NWCS. And now that we have the T-Astragal bar already milled down and we have all the dowel holes already drilled in it, the next thing I need to do is actually mill out or actually rod out the section that's going to receive the latch. This latch is actually going to be a 3/4 inch one. I believe it's about a 1/2 inch deep, and then it's going to actually mount inside of the T-Astragal bar, and it's going to actually latch into the top and bottom of the door jamb and into the threshold. So to get this mortised in, the first thing I need to do is actually dial in the proper depth so it can actually end up being perfectly flush with my T-Astragal bar. And to do that, you guys saw me using my T-square and the actual latch itself over here on the router table, and then raising and lowering the bit to get everything perfectly flush. This is actually just going to be a test cut though. I'm going to use this 2x4 just to make sure the depth is perfectly dialed in. So whenever you're going through a process like this, you want to make sure you get everything dialed in kind of step by step. And the first thing I'm dialing in is my proper depth. After the depth is dialed in, then I want to make sure that I have the fence and a stop block set up so I can get the proper length. And then the next thing I'm going to work on is making sure that I have it perfectly centered or wherever I want it placed in the material that I'm going to be routing. So I'm going to use a 2x4 to gauge the proper depth. And after I have that dialed in, you guys get to see me test it here. And that actually works out perfect. The next thing we want to do is then set up a stop block so I can get the proper length whenever I plow these in, because I don't want my mortise to be longer than my actual latch. I want everything to end up perfectly flush with the end of my T-Astragal bar and make sure that the latch is perfectly snug inside the mortise that we cut. So to do so, the first thing I need to do is figure out exactly where the edge of my cutter is. So I want to use a square off of my fence to make a mark directly on my router plate, so that way I know where the edge of this bit is actually landing. And with me marking the edge of the latch on my actual piece of 2x4 here, I can make sure those two marks line up and then clamp a stop block onto my fence. Then all I have to do is actually plow until I meet my stop block, and that should theoretically give me the proper length. One thing I will do is clear up the sawdust in front of my stop block. Some of it actually is caught right there. One thing I do decide to do after doing this first couple passes on the test piece, I decided to actually raise the stop block slightly off of my table, which allows all the extra sawdust to flow right down into my dust collection hose right here. As you guys see me doing here, this actually makes it a lot better. Most of the sawdust hits the stop block, falls right down, and then goes into the dust collection hose. Again, this isn't perfect dust collection, but whenever you're doing dados or anything else over on your router table, you tend to just have all the chips flying everywhere unless you have some type of really solid under the table collection. So having this hose right here, right in line with my bit, does collect a good portion of the chips and keeps this a little bit cleaner than what it normally is. But now that I have the length dialed in, the next thing I want to work on is trying to make sure that it's perfectly centered in the actual material that I'm going to use. So this is just an offcut from the actual T-Astragal material. So here I'm just messing with the fence and trying to get it dialed in to where I want it. I know where my dowels are actually drilled on the back side of my T-Astragal bar. I just want to make sure that, again, where my latch lands up, it isn't interfering with anything else, and it lands up in a proper placement when I actually close the door. All that was something I already pre-planned and kind of figured out where I want my latch to land. And as you guys see sitting here in this 2x4, it's perfectly snug, it's flush, and it's right at the very edge, which is exactly what we're looking for. So now I believe we have everything about dialed in for me to actually take the test cut on my actual workpiece. And there you guys can actually see how the sawdust flows right down the dust port. Again, doesn't collect at all, but again, dust management is just about finding ways to mitigate the dust as much as you can to keep as much of it from going airborne. So catching most of it here on the table before it falls all over my floor, I'll take anything I can get. I do plan to build an actual full under the table collection setup for this, probably just using like a Tupperware tote and then a 4-inch hose or something along those lines. I have to fully think about that. I saw a couple of the videos online that I probably want to mimic. I want to come up with something that's removable, doesn't look too cumbersome, but also is airtight so I actually get the proper airflow for my full-size dust collector. But as you guys can see me doing here, I'm taking my first plunge on the actual T-Astragal piece. And again, I don't have more milled up, so you want to make sure that you do all the proper test cuts before you go into actually milling your actual piece. And here it actually looks like it's working out perfectly. We're going to do our first test fit, and that's exactly what we're looking for. All I have to do is route the other end, and then we're going to be coming up with a full T-Astragal piece. I already have all my dowel holes drilled, and now we need to actually go ahead and do the last pass on the other end, and then we can go into adding the profile. I do plan to have the T-Astragal piece actually stick out past the full thickness of the door on the inside. I'm planning to actually have it stick out probably about a 1/2 inch. So I want to have a chamfered profile that actually meets to the 1/2 inch reveal that I'm aiming for. So I made these actually slightly thicker than the door. I believe I made it about 3/4 inches thicker than the door, so 2 1/4. So once I do my chamfer, I still have that 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch reveal sticking past. So what I'm going to do is actually take this 2x4, mark the size of the chamfer that I want, and then from there I'm going to kind of raise the bit until I get the edge profile meeting my line. And once I have that dialed in, now I'm going to take my actual T-Astragal piece and run my pieces through. And what I'm going to do, instead of going directly to the bearing, I'm going to get a light skim pass where I'm barely touching the bit. I don't want to go full contact with the bearing, so I want to try to avoid any type of chip out or tear out. So by kind of taking a half pass, by loosely using the bit, I'm able to actually get a small bite and then come back for the full bite afterwards, and again prevent any type of tear out or any of my pieces blowing out. Just a little safety precaution I like to take when I'm doing something like this, or if I don't have extra backups. But if you guys have enjoyed this process, please make sure you guys stay tuned for the next one where we go into the door glue up. If you guys have enjoyed, please make sure you guys let me know down in the comments. Leave me a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.